Welcome to The Intentional Exit, a leadership legacy podcast for those who don't just want to retire, but want to do it well. I'm Rebecca Shriver, and this is where we help you protect what you've built, reduce unnecessary taxes, and create a plan that gives you clarity, confidence, and control. So together, we make sure your exit is not accidental, it's intentional. Before we begin, please note that the information shared in this podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be interpreted as tax, legal, or financial advice. For guidance specific to your situation, we recommend consulting with a qualified professional. Welcome to the Intentional Exit podcast. I'm Rebecca Shriver, and I'll be your host today. This is episode 6, and today we are going to talk about this giant silver tsunami that a lot of people are really talking about. And if you haven't heard about this, it really actually has a lot to do with everybody born between 1946 and 1964. So for people who are approaching retirement or actually are already in retirement, did you realize that you hold about 80% of the nation's wealth? And so there is this thing where the IRS, different businesses, different organizations are not unaware of the fact that you actually hold the nation's wealth. And we are getting ready to enter the largest wealth transfer over the next 20 to 30 years from the older generation to the younger generation. And there are these things called taxes that are going to be applied to that wealth transfer. And immediately when I start talking to people about this, they want to argue with me and say, hey, you know, we have the big, beautiful bill. They put that into place. They raised estate planning taxes. They did all of these things where they bumped up the amount of money you could have without a tax. And while you are correct, you are also being misguided by the media. Okay. And so I realize that's a huge statement. That's a really big statement. But what I want you to understand is that actually back in 2020, January 1st of 2020, when they put through the Secure Act, they didn't do it to your benefit. Believe it or not, the Secure Act was not built for your benefit. The Secure Act was actually built for the government's benefit. And so as we dig into this today, I want to get you really, really comfortable with the idea that you have an opportunity right now to make a difference, not only in how you're going to be taxed in retirement, but also in how much wealth is actually going to end up with your family instead of the IRS's back pocket. And so if you aren't taking advantage of this, you are missing the boat. You are actually wasting a ton of money by sending it to the IRS when you could choose to organize yourself a completely different way and put the money in your family's pocket. And honestly, it's up to you. If you don't do it, you are subject to the government's plan and you have zero control because you have to follow their rule book. And while we still have to follow the rule book moving forward, we're going to use the rule book to create a better path for you and your family so you can take back control the amount of taxes that both you and your family will incur, and actually turn the tide, use the tax code to your advantage versus being subject to what it is they have as a plan for you. So buckle up, let's sit down, let's talk today about how you can take back control of your family's wealth and your transfer of that wealth over time. So the Secure Act, what am I talking about? So this was this bill that was passed that discussed how your pre-tax or retirement accounts would be taxed both during your lifetime and as they transferred over to your family. And so there were a lot of people out clapping their hands. Oh my goodness, this is great. But I have to tell you, it really wasn't. The minute that the Secure Act came out, I had this light bulb moment that said, they're not doing this for the benefit of the American people. They're doing it for the benefit of the IRS and the tax consequences that we need to be able to keep up with this debt that we're accruing as a nation, right? Our national debt. And so they're trying to figure out how to fix the national debt. Well, again, we've talked about this before. How do they do that? Well, they create more taxes. And by doing so, if they come out and they say, hey, we're going to raise tax rates by 3, 5, 10%. And by the way, did you know that we're in some of the historically lowest tax brackets that ever existed? Just even within the last 50 years, we've had tax brackets that if you are sitting at the higher end of income, you could be taxed at 70% of every single dollar that you earned over a certain level. So 70 cents on each and every dollar. So I'll have people tell me, oh, tax brackets aren't going to go up that much. Is it really plausible to believe that we're going to have these higher tax brackets? And the answer is, look at history, right? Look at what's happened in the past. We used to have to pay 70 cents on every dollar earned once you got up to a certain level. Now the highest tax bracket that you can hit is 37%. But that's today, right? What about 5 years from now? What about when this national debt reaches huge amounts? What about whenever that kind of comes around? What is that going to look like? And so what I want you to realize is that, yes, we are in historically low tax brackets, but if you do nothing about it, if you don't actually work on this, you are being extremely short-sighted in how you can protect and kind of bubble wrap your family's wealth moving forward. So back to this Secure Act. We have the Secure Act that comes through and it looks really rosy, right? It looks amazing because all of a sudden we don't have to take that RMD at 70.5. We can take it at 72 or 73. And they actually have this system where depending on your age, now you may be 74 when you take it. So if you're younger, we're actually going to push it out even further to say you could actually even take it out at 74 or 75. But here's the problem, okay? The Secure Act also said that we now, instead of having someone's lifetime, so if I'm your child and you give me an IRA, right? Like you gift me an IRA upon your death, I used to have my entire lifetime to take that out. So my RMD, or my required minimum distribution, used to be really small. So it used to be like 2%, 1%. Something like that. If I'm in my 40s, I didn't have to take out very much. And it was based on my life expectancy, based on my age, and it could actually last my entire lifetime and then be transferred over to my children, right? And so by doing that, we're spreading out the tax burden. We're spreading out this time period in which I have to be able to use it to allow it to grow. We can spread out the taxes. We can use a lower tax rate, all of these things. But what they did is they said, okay, these kids, they can't have it for their entire lifetime. They now have to take it over a 10-year time period. Well, if you're someone sitting with $2 million, $3 million, $4 million, $5 million in these qualified accounts, now we have to distribute that over a 10-year time period, which means if I'm your kid, let's just say you've got $2 million sitting in an IRA, I'm your only child, you are now stacking at least $200,000 on top of my already earned income each and every year for that 10 years, which means the IRS just figured out how to get even more taxes on the same exact dollars. Because if I have an average income, we're going to take that, we're going to stack it on top of it, and we are going to force these dollars out over that 10-year time period. And then also, by the way, if I don't spend those dollars, what am I going to do? Probably going to reinvest them, right? If I'm smart and you've taught me well, then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to reinvest those dollars. And somebody says, well, why don't you just go ahead and put it into a Roth IRA? Why don't you put it into an IRA? Well, that would be a fantastic idea, except for the fact that there are limits as to how much I can put it in, right? How much can I put in? Not that much, right? Compared to that $200,000, that's very minimal of what I can put in. And you know what? I have people all of the time who say, well, boo-hoo, you inherited $2 million. Why should that matter? Well, my bet is that my parents didn't want me to get the least value for all of those dollars that they worked hard to save and grow. They wanted me to get the most value out of that, right? If I'm your child, they wanted me to be able to receive as many of those dollars. So if the value of my account is significantly lost to the IRS, and then all of those dollars that have come out of that IRA are then reinvested in a forever taxable account or a tax-as-you-go account or just a standard brokerage account or any kind of an investment account, then every year on whatever is gained on that, I'm going to receive a 1099, which means not only are we becoming the least tax efficient as far as the distribution, right? The least tax efficient, we're stacking it on top, but now we're actually building additional wealth that is going to even further increase the amount of money that I am going to have to pay taxes on each and every year, and bumping me up higher and higher and higher in these tax brackets. But we're also creating an even bigger problem, which is we don't actually know what those tax brackets are going to look like in the future. Sure, right now, highest tax bracket is roughly 37% for federal and then whatever you have for state. But that doesn't mean that that's always going to be the case. It could easily hit 70%, or maybe what we were really sitting in was that 22 to 24% tax bracket. And while that might be manageable in the future, that actually turns into a 40 or 45% tax bracket. And so while you have the opportunity now, we should really be looking at how do we increase your efficiency? And so we've created the retirement efficiency tool. It's on our website. I really highly encourage you to go plug in your numbers, right? Plug in your numbers and get your score back. See if you're actually being efficient in this retirement time. What does that look like? Are there places that we can improve? We'll sit down. You can have your optimization conversation. We'll sit down and do that appointment with you and show you exactly when to pay the taxes, how much taxes to pay. And hey, by the way, what if we could trade taxes for an investment? What if we could actually get into the same position, but instead of shoveling money to the IRS, we could use those same dollars that otherwise would have gone to the IRS and create an investment for you that works as a tax offset. Wouldn't that be a better idea? Wouldn't it be better to have an investment instead of a tax bill? And not, hey, we're kicking the can down the road, we're going to create this tax bill for later. That's not what we're doing. We're actually doing a dollar for dollar, or pretty darn close to a dollar for dollar adjustment, to where instead of sending it to the IRS, we use tax code, right? We're not doing anything crazy. We're not hiring money. We're not evading taxes. But we use a tax strategy on the other side so that those dollars eventually come back to you. And yes, you may have to pay a little bit of taxes on them, but it's not the full nut. It's not the full amount that you will have to pay, or that your family will actually have to pay if you do nothing. Okay? So the thing I want you to hear me say over and over and over again is, the winners in this conversation are the ones that move, not the ones that sit and do a ton of research, not the ones, leave that to us. That's what we do, right? That's what our team does. We sit down and we show you, we actually build it for you. And what does the conversation cost you? An hour of your time. An hour of your time. An hour of your time could make the difference in your life of hundreds of thousands of dollars. It could make the difference in your children's life of hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, do you have an hour that you could spend with us? Maybe even 2 hours if that's not too much to ask. But you could spend an hour to 2 hours with us to learn about how you, in particular, we look at your particular situation and how you could save your family hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime and their lifetime and not lose it to the IRS. Sound like a plan, right? Set that optimization appointment. Let's talk. Like and subscribe. Let me help to educate you around how you can take back control of your retirement. Take back control of this wealth transfer. We know we're talking about hundreds of trillions of dollars are going to go through this transition period over the next 20 to 30 years. And you're a part of it, right? Whether or not you know it, you are a part of it. We have to talk about this. We have to bring it to light. We have to get you in the best position possible to make this transfer over to your family the most efficient that it can be, to make your retirement the most efficient that it can be. And believe it or not, by creating the most efficient retirement possible, we are also looking at the most efficient transfer possible. They are not opposite. They work together. They work in conjunction with each other to protect you and your family simultaneously so that you don't end up being the government's meal ticket, right? Nobody wants to be the government's meal ticket. We don't want to look at ourselves as being lunch, right? We want to make sure that as we're making this transition and as we're doing this, yes, do we owe the IRS money? Yeah, that was the handshake deal we made whenever we created that 401k or IRA. We said, listen, we'll grow your money too, and then we'll give it to you once it's grown, right? So they own a good portion of your accounts. They own part of that 401k. They own part of that IRA, but you don't have to allow them to own it forever. You can use the guidelines that they've created to get them out of your accounts, to get them out of your bucket and actually transition into a tax-free environment for the rest of your life and for 10 years after your death, because the rules shift greatly. Oh my gosh, they shift almost completely once you've paid the IRS what they're due. But if you're on their plan, they're going to take as much as possible. If you're on your own plan that they designed for themselves but didn't share with the rest of the world, because there's always a way, right? There's always a way for you to take advantage of the rules they wrote for themselves. There's always an out, right? Or a lot of people like to call it a loophole. And it's not necessarily a loophole unless you think that they've hidden it. And they didn't hide it. It's part of the tax code. But if you don't know how to use it properly, then you're subject to whatever comes. And so get that retirement optimization conversation going. Like, reach out to us, set the appointment. Let's talk about your particular situation. Let's save your family from spending hundreds of thousands of dollars with the IRS that you otherwise could have avoided. I'm Rebecca Shriver. If you've learned something today, if you're fired up, you're ready to go, you want to learn about what it is that we can offer you, go to that retirement efficiency tool, take the quiz. It's just putting in your numbers, right? Put in your numbers, hit the button. It's going to give you a score, and then set up the appointment with us. Come talk to us about how we can optimize your retirement, optimize this transfer of wealth to your family so that you can be the most efficient possible, so that you hold on to your family's wealth and so that you're not gifting it to the IRS. Like and subscribe. If I can ask you to do anything today, if you're not ready to do the tool, you're not ready to talk, you don't want to save hundreds of thousands of dollars, even if it only costs you an hour of your time, Do me a favor, like and subscribe. It's the most free way that you can help us get out our message. It's the freest way that you can help us to be able to continue to bring you more content like this that will help you to open up your eyes to the way that you can take back control from the IRS, hold on to more of your dollars. So like and subscribe. If you're starting to think differently about your retirement, then this podcast has done exactly what it's designed to do. Your retirement, your wealth transfer, your money, your family deserves more than guesswork. It deserves intention. Please remember that this is not to be used as legal, tax, or financial advice. Everyone's situation deserves intention, and it deserves to be looked at by a qualified professional. Do us a favor, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.